In this video, I'll explain what I mean by real-world English and why it's so important to expose yourself to it. If you understand most of what I'm saying, you're in the right place. Subtitles are there to help. Welcome everyone to this final rule. Rule number 7. Learn real English. Today I'm happy because if you've made it to this final video, then you definitely have what it takes to learn English. These necessary qualities are the passion for the language, consistency, and your interest. With all that said, and without further ado, let's move on to the final rule, which is learn real English. This rule, just like all the others, is really important. Because if you don't follow it, you risk studying English years, like many Europeans do in their traditional classrooms, and you still won't be able to speak English well. So what do I mean by learning real English? I mean using material and content like I'm doing now with real English speakers, using the language in a natural way and in a complete context and not completely simplified to words and vocabulary and grammar taught in a textbook unit. By real English, I mean content that uses words that real English speakers write with and speak in. Content that we often don't see in traditional courses because, as I said, they try to dumb it down and limit the vocabulary to an easier level. In traditional courses, you often listen to these boring, lifeless dialogues with people who speak unnaturally and unnaturally slowly and repeat phrases that were learned but don't talk about anything interesting you want to know. I've talked about this a lot in other videos, so I hope you understand what I mean by now. And if you don't learn real English, you're going to encounter two main problems. One, the first problem is that if you travel to an English-speaking country, you won't understand the native speakers. I can't tell you how many adult German students I have who tell me a similar story. They have to use English at work, and when speaking with other Europeans, they have no problems. But if they have to talk to someone from England or America, no chance. This illustrates perfectly the first main problem of not learning real English and not training your ear to its real speed and rhythm. Luckily, by watching these videos, you are now listening to real English. If you only listen to material in textbooks, in other words, with material that was first written and then read, you will never understand real English. If you want to learn to speak like the English, understand movies, series, songs, and English and Americans when they talk to each other, you will have to learn real English. There are hundreds of expressions and idioms that I use in my videos that you will probably never hear in written English. One example, the word literally. In the last 10 years, this word has literally become the most used word in all of English. Literally means, in its most original sense, exactly as stated, without exaggeration or metaphor. In other words, literally means the opposite of a metaphor. So the correct usage of the word would be, he literally wrote the report by hand. This is the true meaning of the word. However, most recently, English speakers, mostly younger, started saying sentences like, I was so embarrassed I literally died. Which, if you have been following, is actually the opposite meaning of literally. Nobody truly dies from embarrassment. But, as language often does, it changes over time, depending on usage. So now, true story, if you look up the word literally, it means both, 1, to be exactly as stated, non-metaphorical, and 2, to be metaphorical. Do you follow me? It's like looking up the word hot and discovering that it also means cold. But that's not all. The word literally is used so often now. There's also a word that signals surprise, shock, or frustrations. Some examples. I literally couldn't believe it, or he literally just walked out. In fact, the word literally is so often used in real English, you literally couldn't watch or listen to a series for 10 minutes without hearing the word like literally 10 times. And yet, this word literally never gets discussed in a traditional English course. Okay, if I hear another use of that word, my head will literally explode, so I'm going to stop now. The second main problem that arises if you never learn real English is you have enormous difficulty with speaking the language. In traditional courses, there's tremendous fear of making a mistake. So students think of all the grammar rules they memorized and try to avoid errors instead of letting the language flow naturally. Often, these students end up translating their mother tongue using a weird approximation of their grammar structures and direct translation of words. This is what happens in traditional courses. Students are given tools to try and translate their thoughts into the target language. If they would listen to real English and have English inside of them, so to speak, when the time came to speak, the words and all the content that live inside of them would come out, and more often than not, with the correct grammar. I'm sorry to keep relating only my personal experience. I hope that all of you watching this video will soon have your own experience with English and can send me videos of you speaking and enjoying your English abilities. But for now, I'll share my experience with French and German. When I learned German, I didn't know all that I do now about language acquisition. And so I wasn't as efficient as I am now. Luckily, I discovered a lot of effective methods on my own, but unfortunately, for a large part of my 15 years learning German, I was more or less translating my English thoughts into German. I wasn't worried too much about making mistakes because I knew how important it was to speak and train spoken language. But I could have become much more proficient, much faster, if I had applied my methods to learn French. In fact, after 2 years now of learning French in the way I've described it in these videos, I was listening to podcasts intended for French speakers, stuff about politics and world affairs. One day while driving, I thought, maybe I should do the same thing with my German. I do live in Germany after all. Well, I chose a history podcast and I was horrified. I actually had a difficult time understanding this real academic German. To be precise, I could watch German TV series and understand every word. My wife watches Germany's Next Top Model, and I'm not exaggerating when I say I understand every word. But Germany's Next Top Model and other shows like this are not speaking like university professors, and I didn't have the proper training in academic German. I'm happy to report I now listen to all kinds of German content like this, and my comprehension quickly improved in this area as well. And these kind of complex thinking, arguments, and sentence structures are exactly what I needed to take my German to the next level. All of this, I hope, illustrates the importance of selecting the proper content where the real language is spoken by real native speakers. It's pretty common sense. You will never understand real world English if you never hear it being spoken. In any case, to return to my French journey, I knew how much I was learning and how incredibly fast my comprehension was improving. My wife, however, doubted my method. She would often frown and say, "You're not learning a language, you're sitting in your room and listening to podcasts. A language is learned by talking to people." Well, her attitude changed pretty quickly when we traveled to France. We were staying in a small castle in a pretty rural area, and at dinner time, we sat by the only other couple in the castle. I began to speak with them in French, and I kept speaking. Honestly, in my wildest dreams, I wouldn't have thought I would have this experience, but I ended up talking with them for an hour and a half, with my wife getting so bored she went upstairs to the room. Now, however, she asked me to help her learn Spanish the real way. I don't say this to brag. I just say this because I first found it really kind of magical But it's true, as long as you keep listening to content that you understand, your spoken English is also improving. There is some spoken training that is also necessary, but that is a subject for another day. Don't expect too much in the first 3 months, but if you keep doing a little every day and are consistent and maintain a positive attitude, you will experience for yourself how much your English improves, all while improving other areas of your life. So, as I close this final episode of the 7 Keys to Learning English, my hope is you found these videos helpful and interesting. I make videos like this based on comprehensible input, but on all sorts of interesting topics, with transcripts and subtitles available for all my videos. With consistency, I hope to have many more videos for you in the future. So if you find this content helpful, please like and subscribe so I can get this content to as many people as possible. If you like and subscribe, it really helps. And if you write a comment, it helps even more. Also, I have made my business English course available for free, which is also based on the comprehensible input method described in these videos. This course is intended for intermediate to advanced English learners and focuses a lot on business topics. If this interests you, check it out, and I'm sure you'll learn a lot. If you watch these videos in order, you will notice that I repeat a lot of the vocabulary from previous videos. So it's a great way to acquire the vocabulary in a natural way. This is honestly quite a lot of value for free, so be sure to check out the link that I put in the description. So, one final time, let's recap all the rules of learning English that we have now learned together. 1. Listen to a lot of English. 2. Repeat, repeat, repeat. 3. Use your dead time. 4. Do a little every day, stress-free. 5. Learn English while improving your life. 6. Don't study English. And now, number 7, learn real-world English. If these videos are helpful for you, you can support this channel by liking the video or subscribing. It really helps other learners find this content. And if you feel like it, leave a comment. I read them and it helps me know what kind of content is most useful for you. Before you move on, remember, listen to English you understand. Listen to it more than once and do a little every day, relaxed and without stress. If this video was helpful, listen to it again another day. Repetition is part of the learning. And when you're ready, I'll see you in another video where we'll keep building your English through real content.